Hi, everyone. I'm Norma Loeb, founder of the Lewy Body Dementia Resource Center. This video series has been created to bring awareness through firsthand experience of people living with Lewy body dementia, their caregivers, and through expert physicians. This crucial information will be shared with healthcare professionals, with families, and the general public to heighten awareness and to enable correct diagnosis. Please know we are here to help you every single day on our live helpline. I thank you for watching.
Early on in dementia with Lewy bodies, we can see various types of hallucinations, and they can be grouped into multiple different categories. The most common one is probably what's called an illusion, where somebody might see a pile of clothes, for example, and think that's a dog or something similar. So in that respect, they have a physical object that's already there, but their brain mistakes it for something else. So that's what we call an illusion. Versus a well-formed hallucination where you might see somebody or something, whereas there's nothing there at all. So the common thing that I hear is that somebody might say, oh, I saw a dog walk by when there's no dog there. Or they might say, I saw, my sister or somebody sitting next to me when that person was not only not there, but may also be deceased or very far away. And then you can have a delusion, which is different from the first two in the sense that a delusion is just a fixed formed belief that's not true. But it doesn't necessarily have to be something that they see. So they could be, in their mind, they could be 100% certain that they went to the store yesterday, or that their spouse is having an affair, or that their children are injured, or something else, where in their mind it's 100% reality. And how that's different than a hallucination is that they're not actually seeing that person there. It's just a thought process that they have. But in reality, these are all kind of a spectrum of the same problem, but they're just variations of that same issue. And then you can throw in something that's very specific called capgras, where it's kind of a mix of a hallucination and delusion, where you mistake a family member for somebody that doesn't exist, or they may confuse who their family member is. And typically that involves faces in particular, where they might see a spouse and think that that spouse is not actually their spouse, and they may not recognize them at all. But if they hear their voice or if they get cues, they can oftentimes reorient themselves and realize who that person is. But they can very easily mistake that person for someone that they don't even recognize, which can be very, very difficult for family to hear and to deal with.
When I wake up in the morning and I look at a wall or the ceiling, there are hieroglyphics all over the ceilings and the walls, okay? They're not really hieroglyphics, but they are totally unlike one another, and there must be 1,000 symbols in the areas that I just mentioned. And I have no clue. I don't know if that's considered a hallucination, what I mentioned before, or not, but it's really feelings that I've never experienced before.
Nikki had auditory hallucinations, and those were the first really prevalent ones. And then came the visual hallucinations. Like a lot of people, he saw children and small animals, and it was very sweet in the beginning. And then as the hallucinations progressed, they got a little bit stronger and not so sweet. I remember an occasion where he woke from a dream and said that he was seeing squirrels, and the squirrels were running all around the apartment, and they were invading the bed, and he needed to go out and buy a $17,000 bed because the squirrels had taken over. And then he got up to check to see in the living room, were the squirrels there? Were they destroying things? And so it took on different forms, benign and then more aggressive forms. There was never any violence, happily, and I know in some cases there is. With Nikki, there was no violence. There was anger, and it would come at me in the form of mistrust. But or you don't understand, or sometimes you're the crazy one. That transference. But all of it came back to ultimately a sweet and docile grounding, which I think you can bring on by deflecting. Very often you can't stop it. You just have to deflect it when it comes at you.
Hallucinations were evident from the beginning. We had a lot, particularly at night, in regard to small animals in the bed. And he would stamp them with his feet or hit them with his hand. I had to be very careful. I always had a bolster pillow between us so I wouldn't get belted in his hallucinatory state, because these were true hallucinations and they made him very scared, very anxiety provoking. And there were animals, there were bad people also. And there could be more than one bad person. There could be several bad people. And he mentioned more than once that someone was trying to kill him, that they would hurt. So I tried to reassure him that he was safe when he woke, when he became more calm, that he was safe and he was loved and nobody would hurt him because I had locked the door and nobody could get in. And the doorman downstairs wasn't letting anybody in. They weren't permitted upstairs. So he was safe in his apartment and I was with him all the time. But they sure were a difficult time for him. He has hallucinations still. And now it could be daytime, nighttime, anytime. And he often comes and takes my hand and says, come with me, I want to show you this. And so he takes me into our bedroom and he says, look on the bed. And I go over and I fluff the bed and I tell him what one of our colleagues said, I'm not able to see what you see. I'm not able to see that. So let me fix the bed and make sure there's nothing there, but I'm not able to see anything. And that satisfies him for a time.
So the hallucinations, delusions, I guess I first want to say that people need to know that Lewy body dementia, once you see one symptom, it doesn't mean that symptom's going to hang around. So it's going to shock you one day and then it may disappear and then it may come back. And so there's always this almost vigilance as a caregiver of wondering what, when will that come back, or will it come back, or what is this about? And the first hallucination was when he was dramatically diagnosed with Lewy body because we didn't know he had bronchitis and he spiked a fever. And just as any new impingement, like a fever, a head cold, too much heat outdoors, too much cold when you're walking outdoors can exacerbate Parkinson's symptoms. Suddenly, because he was ill with the bronchitis, he suddenly developed all these Lewy body symptoms. And one of them was to look down our hallway, which just led to our bedrooms, a flat hallway, and to ask me, when did you put steps in the hallway? And so that was the first visual hallucination. For Paul, those came and went, and they weren't that dramatic for a number of years. What was particularly dramatic was 2 years into the disease, and I'm dating that from the diagnosis. He suddenly he thought there were two of me. And the way I learned about it, he said to me, you walk down the road to see your friend Anne, and the other Pamela comes back. And that was one of the most difficult moments of dealing with this disease, because he was so confused and he was frightened. And I always say to people, and it's kind of funny, and I think I'm trying to ease the discomfort, is that I expected to see Rod Serling standing in the corner of my room smoking a cigarette, saying that this woman thinks she's in her home, but she's really in the Twilight Zone, because it feels that eerie to have someone you love, your husband who's known you all these years, look at you with the face that he turns to a stranger. And he would say to me, how do I know you're who you say you are? If you go with me to see our friends Steve and Linda, will they know you? Do they know who you are? And this went on and on. And I'm lucky in that he never got belligerent. Only once did he get belligerent and not trust who I said I was. So he would believe me, even though he didn't understand how he could really know that I was his wife.
Yeah, I used to be very embarrassed by hallucinations. That first one that I had, which was a dragon out of the computer, that happened a couple of times. And I didn't even tell anybody about it until I was, we were discussing the possibility of Lewy body. But I had others where they were often in the peripheral of my vision. So typically to the right side. And I would often see a woman standing there. And it's just off in the distance. Either she's behind me or she's just in the other room. And not much going on, but very clear, right? Then I had mice that I thought I was seeing. And it got to the point where once I asked Tae Young, my husband, if he could get some mouse traps, because I wanted to put mouse traps around the house. And his response was, we don't have mice, Mike. There's no mice. We get the house treated, there's no mice. And I said, I could swear I've seen them. And then what caused me to stop driving is I was driving one day, and it was just here near the house. We live on the corner, and I was about to turn into our street. And I sat there at the turn for a prolonged period of time because I thought I was waiting for a big truck to turn. And this big, dark truck. When I realized there was no truck there, because I just intellectually said, that truck's not there. That's not real. And as I turned the corner, it was the shadow of the hedges onto the street from the afternoon sun. And that's very classic for me. It's usually a shadow, or I'll see a rock while we're driving and I'll ask Tay to slow down because I think that's a turtle, or I'll think it's a little dog or something by the side of the road. And it's usually something that I'm making a mistake for.
Whenever the caregivers were here and I was here alone with them, sometimes I would just come out in the kitchen to get some food or whatever, and he would come up to me and say these people are trying to kill us, be careful, we're not safe. And I had to reassure him. But honestly, after that, I just went back into my room. I kind of left it for the caregivers to deal with.
He always would get scared that we weren't safe, and he would ask if we could call the police because he is afraid someone's trying to come in, someone's trying to steal his money, someone's trying to hurt us. And I would actually use the building phone and call the doorman and reassure him that the doormen are taking care of us and that they're keeping us safe. And that reassured him a lot. But yeah, he was always thinking about someone trying to hurt us, someone trying to rob us, someone trying to kill us. And luckily, some of the doormen would come upstairs and tell him that we're safe, and that was a lot of help.
So her aides told me that she's always looking, and she'd say, "Do you see that person over there?" And at first, the aide would say, "No, I don't see anybody." And but she's right there. So it's very obvious hallucinations. The aide learned not to say no after a while and just say, and I told her, you say, well, you have special powers, you can see her, I can't see her, but not to argue about those. So, and she definitely does now. I mean, she's always looking and saying, waving to somebody or saying, "Who's that?" And there's nobody there. I got some new doctors for her who were willing to explore other, this is not just Alzheimer's or, whatever, but, he asked her point blank, it's like, "Do you see like people or animals or," and she goes, "Oh yeah." There's all these people sitting, squatting along the wall. They're all poor. I mean, they're all poor. They're all like waiting for food. They were very, it was very detailed descriptions of what she's seeing. Like, she never mentioned that to me, but she was just like, "Oh yeah, I see that." And he's like, "How often?" "Oh, a lot." Like, where did this come from?
One of the early ones that has stayed with her for a long time is there's this little boy, Stuart. And I've never figured out where the name Stuart come from or what, but early on, Stuart was climbing the trees outside and he fell and he got hurt, and she was upset about Stuart, or she's always worried whether Stuart is going to make it home. If it's raining out, he needs a coat, or he's cold, or so early on, I'd always say, "Oh no, there's no Stuart, there's no." Now we're at the place where I can say, "Oh, Stuart's gone home, he's okay." We find a way to help her work through it. The other day, when she's at nighttime, when she's in bed, we have a pillow under her knees and a pillow under her heels so they don't rub so much. And she tends to think lately that there are kids who get in bed with her. Sometimes she'll say they're only eyes, but she'll say, "No, Stuart's in the bed." So I tell all the aides, when you go help her to go to the bathroom, don't throw the covers or the pillows, because she thinks you're throwing the babies and you're throwing kids, and she gets so upset. So you got to move it carefully. Make sure. The other day I sat on the side of the bed and she nearly had a fit because I was sitting on Stuart. So it's interesting that some of those hallucinations and delusions hang on. They may shift or change. The other day, Stuart was sick. He needed to go to the doctor. Well, her ear was bothering her and she needed to go to the doctor. So sometimes what she's saying about her hallucinations is about what she needs is around too. Not always, but sometimes.
We were coming back from dinner or something, and we were in the hallway. And again, I had my arm on his back for support. And I said to him, because they used to have they had hallways they were like spokes from a round center hallway with a center light fixture, and then like a large drum table with a flower arrangement. And I said to Jerry, "Do you see those children dancing around the table? They're like little table height children dancing." And Jerry kind of looked at me and he said, "No." And I said, oh, okay, good. That was the only time I ever mentioned anything to him, because I thought it was so odd, because it was like for the first time, it seemed like there was color, not anything defined, not like I could think, oh, well, the little girls were wearing pink and the boys were wearing red, or it wasn't, but it was color of some kind. And so I thought, okay, now I know, shut up. Don't say anything else.